Hello everybody, Maven here, and you ever wish there was a primary ammo machine gun in Destiny 2? Well, now there's tons of them, thanks to the buffed Peacekeepers. Bungie really juiced this thing up, and now I dare say it's either broken or borderline broken. It is up there for sure. The update is that when you damage a target with an SMG, you get a stacking damage buff, up to 100% bonus damage, and if you don't shoot a target for 1 second, the buff goes away, but it's fine because obviously you're going to keep sustained damage with your SMG. And it basically turns them into a machine gun. The Peacekeepers really just takes the sub out of submachine gun. It's insane. So today we're going to find out how to break this darn thing, so let's get to it. Hope you enjoy. So before we get to the testing, allow me to demonstrate the updated Peacekeepers. So you damage a target, each bullet grants a stack. Stacks up to 20 times for a 100% damage buff. If you don't shoot anything for 1 second, it resets. You get the idea. So I tested out 11 things against our good old buddy old pal Carl to try to figure out what was the best. I have a bunch of clips, so instead of going at them randomly, what I did is I just ordered them from slowest TTK to fastest TTK. So with that in mind, let's jump to our first contender. So our slowest thing of the day was the Ikelos SMG with Volt Shot. Surprisingly, I thought this one would do a lot better. But after all of my testing with the Peacekeepers, I found that an Ad Clear perk would be pretty good because you have the PKs itself to up your damage, so you don't really need a damage perk. So it'd be like multi-purpose, you know? And then the Volt Shot also applies like an extra damage over time to the target you apply it to, so I thought it would be a great multi-purpose role. But it turns out it was the slowest of the day, and I don't really understand why. I mean, I did have to take a second and kill another ad and reapply Volt Shot, but still, I expected more. Next up, we got the Huckleberry. Now, this exotic did get a change with the release of Revenant. Its catalyst just got replaced with kinetic tremors. And I was curious to find out if kinetic tremors was affected by Peacekeeper's 100% damage buff. Turns out it is not. But you do get that speed up RPM. The mag is small though. This thing really relies on ad clear rather than single target damage. The kinetic tremors is meant to help its single target damage, but it was still pretty underwhelming. I think I'd rather go with the Ikelos SMG over this one, honestly. Although the Huckleberry would do a little bit better if I did proc Rampage ×3 before going at Carl, but still, not that great. Next up, we have the Risk Runner. Now this one is by far the best option if you're going up against Fallen enemies because they use a lot of arc damage. But since we're not going up against Fallen, I just threw a pulse grenade at my own face so I can proc Arc Conductor for a few seconds, and you can see that temporarily gives us infinite mag size, so you can keep that 100% damage buff for longer, which is excellent. But despite that, it was one of the lowest contenders for TTK, and I was actually shocked, no pun intended, that it did this bad. And needless to say, all these clips weren't perfect. I missed a lot of crits, and you can see here at the end that really affects the Risk Runner. If I hit more crits, I would have killed Carl, but I had to reload one more time just to finish him off at the end there. Next up, we have the Buzzard. Now, why the heck am I trying a sidearm in an SMG video? Well, I wanted to see how these SMGs compare to the highest TTK legendary primary in the entire game, which is the Buzzard with Overflow and kinetic tremors. And not only is the Buzzard one of the highest TTK legendary primaries in the game, but one of the highest TTK primaries in general, even with exotics mixed in, because I did a video testing primary DPS against Templar, and Buzzard was one of the top contenders. This thing is monstrous, and it ended up in 8th place. Next up, we have the Out of Bounds with Threat Detector and Surrounded. I was curious to see how a surrounded SMG would compare because it's a very high damage buff. It's 40%, but if you enhance it, it's 47%. And also this lightweight frame archetype is the highest DPS SMG archetype in the game. Now, I'm not too big of a fan of surrounded because you have to have 3 ads around you, which is not like all the time. I think Bungie should update it so you only need 2 ads around you, then it'd be more viable. And for such harsh requirements, I expected it to do a lot better, but it was actually one of the worst. Next up, we have the Cold Front Dawning SMG with Rewind rounds and Frenzy. And you'll see in a moment we're going to test another SMG with Rewind and Frenzy, except it's an energy weapon. This one is kinetic, so it does 10% more damage to unshielded combatants. Now, someone feel free to clarify, but I think Bungie removed that kinetic feature against non-miners, but I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that. So I thought the fact that Cold Front was kinetic would boost it ahead of the option we're about to try, but turns out I was wrong. Because our next option here is the Parabellum with Rewind Rounds and Frenzy. Same role as the Cold Front, except it is an energy weapon, doesn't have that kinetic boost, but it is a lightweight frame. Like I just said, lightweight frames are the highest DPS SMG archetype, and it looks like that made up for it. And don't quote me on this, but I believe Bungie made the Parabellum focusable at Banshee, so if you do not have one, you can focus one there when it's in the daily rotator. Next up, we have another Parabellum, but this time we got Rewind Rounds and Deconstruct. Two perks that both load bullets back into your magazine, and they combo very well with each other. They stack very well, so you have just a gigantic mag size. You have like over 100 bullets in your mag. And when your magazine size is this large, that allows you much more time to take advantage of Peacekeeper's 100% damage buff. So as you can see here, we're able to take out Carl in 2 magazines because the mags are so large. So this is definitely a top contender and one of my personal favorite SMGs in the entire game. And now we're moving on to the final warning. Now, why am I trying another sidearm? Well, because I wanted to compare the SMGs to the highest DPS exotic primary in the game. The Buzzard was the highest non-exotic, this is the highest exotic. And we're able to take out Carl in 2 magazines. I ranted and raved about this thing in my multiple final warning videos that I've done. I did one recently when it got its catalyst. This thing is extremely ridiculous. Despite all these things being buffed by Peacekeepers, final warning still takes the 3rd place spot. This is just undoubtedly one of the strongest weapons in the entire game. It causes unravel, it makes tangles on its own, and it has built-in tracking. Like, what more could you want? And at the number 2 slot, we have the Osteostriga, but only under certain conditions when the mag is overflowed. So we go at Carl with 108 bullets in our magazine, and as we damage him, it's spreading poison to nearby ads, refilling more bullets back into the magazine, and we absolutely obliterate him in just a few seconds, no problem. It's broken. However, I will say this is not a realistic scenario. This is not always going to happen, and without that overflow, the Osteo kind of sucks, and it's one of the bottom contenders. And I will say it also took me several tries to record this clip, because what kept happening is the Osteo kept like bugging out. Like, I would have my overflow, I would have over 100 in the mag, and then I would walk up to Carl, ready to record my clip, and then the game just suddenly deletes my overflow for no reason. Like, I'd have 100 bullets in the mag, and then suddenly I have 27 and I didn't even shoot a single bullet. It just deletes it out of nowhere, and I don't know why it does that. I don't know if this is a bug. I'm not an Osteo main, but if anybody knows if this isn't a bug, let me know in the comments. But now moving on to our number 1 slot. We have, of course, the Teraba. When you proc Ravenous Beast, this thing is basically a heavy weapon, as you saw in the intro of the video. And I didn't even hit exclusively crits, but we still just annihilated Carl in seconds. It killed slightly faster than the overflowed Osteostriga. So it's absolutely insane, but it does require you to proc Ravenous Beast, which is a big hassle. And that's it for everything I tested in the video. Now, believe me, I tried to cook up some strategies, okay? I did try more things than what you just saw here. They just weren't good enough for the video. For example, I experimented with running double SMGs. I know that's something people will bring up. I thought about Recluse with Master of Arms because that just got buffed, and pairing that with another SMG that had Harmony. And I tried the Rapacious Appetite with 4th times the charm and target lock. I also tried that with Harmony. Then I thought about the potential of using 2 SMGs with Cascade Point and swapping back and forth between them, taking advantage of infinite Cascade Points since Peacekeepers gives auto-loading holster to your SMGs. Believe me guys, I cooked, or at least I tried to, but nothing was better than the stuff I tried in this video. And if you comment about the Manticore, you're trolling. Now, out of all the things I tested, what SMG did I end up on? Well, that's gonna go to the Parabellum. I mainly use the Rewind Deconstruct one, but I always find myself considering the Frenzy roll for better burst damage to trash mobs, and I think I'll try going with that one for a while. Now, your question is probably, why Parabellum? Well, because it really is plug and play. You don't need to do anything fancy for it to be incredibly strong. With the Teraba, you need to keep it in your hands exclusively to proc Ravenous Beast, and you're not allowed to Eager Edge skate, which is a huge bummer for me because I use Eager Edge swords on my loadouts 90% of the time. And the reason I'm not using the Osteo is because it's not great in some situations. Like I said before, sometimes it just randomly eats your overflow and I don't know why, and sometimes it doesn't overflow when you really want it to. And without the overflow, it's not great. Those slow-moving projectiles sometimes eat your damage stacks when you're trying to move from target to target, waiting for that projectile to connect. And then we come to our third strongest SMG, the Parabellum. It doesn't require you to activate some fancy perk. Everything it does automatically. So 8 times out of 10, it will be stronger than Osteo and Teraba. And on top of that, the most important part is that it does not take up the exotic slot. And that allows you to run the Wither Horde in your kinetic slot, which is what I do. So I don't really think there's an argument you can make for anything else. It's a no-brainer. The Parabellum is just the best option. I really hope Bungie will come to their senses one day and just make the Teraba not lose its charge if you swap off. That would instantly make it S tier. So now that we got our SMG situated, let me finally break down the build we're using. So as you can tell, we're on Strand because Banner of War is still broken as ever and lets us survive easily in SMG range and basically stand out in the open for free. So just start off any encounter with the Grapple Punch or Frenzied Blade and you're good to go and you're basically immortal. And the other aspect we got is Into the Fray for ability spam and Woven Mail. Now for our fragments, we got Ascent, which is the best fragment in the entire game, Warding for Woven Mail when we pick up orbs, Fury to grant melee energy when we hit enemies with our Tangle, and Generation for grenade spam, which is the other best fragment in the entire game. For our mod setup, our main goal is just to get double Solar Surge online to get that 17% damage buff for our SMG and our Solar GL, which is a Marsilian C by the way, and we even have time dilation to make it last longer. So all we need to do is make orbs for that, which we are doing with Heavy Handed on the gloves and Solar Siphon on the helmet. And we have Hands On and Heavy Finder because why not? Impact Induction for more grapple spam, Triple Resists, Absolution on the boots for more ability spam, and finally Bomber and Outreach on the class item. Stat-wise, I opted for double hundreds in Resilience and Discipline while maintaining that tier 3 Intellect soft cap, and then dumped as much into Strength as I could. And that's basically it for the build. As a longtime Destiny veteran, I can already tell you that this is a textbook example of a reliable build right here. Having your SMG be twice as strong for free all the time, just making it feel like a machine gun and running around with that as your primary is just insane. I'm telling you, Peacekeepers is now one of the strongest exotics in the entire game. I could not be happier with the buff they issued to it. See, this is what I want out of exotic overhauls. I want everything to have a wow factor to it, and this is the wow factor I was waiting for. There's so many other exotics in the game just begging for their own wow factor. Bungie, make it happen. So as always, the dim loadout link to this build will be down below in the description and also the pinned comment if you'd like to give it a try. And if you got any buddies who are Titan mains, I'd appreciate if you share the video with them. I'm sure this is something they might want to try out. And by the way, in case anyone asked, in the Teraba clip in the intro, I had Surges and Essence. That's how I was able to 2-clip Carl. Anyways, if there's any great SMGs I might have missed, feel free to let me know. And that's gonna do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like and a comment because interacting with a video like that really pleases the algorithm. It's the way of telling YouTube that you enjoyed the content, and so they help it get more exposure by pushing it in the algorithm. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing as we got a lot of fresh episode Revenant content in the way. We have a lot of sweet builds in the works. You're not gonna want to miss out. So hope you stick around for more, and I will catch you in tomorrow's video. See you later.